What up? My name is Big Lou, and you're now listening to Go Produce. We're the show that explores how music industry professionals turn their passions into profit. If you want to learn how to secure production positions at events like TIFF, Way Home, and Digital Dreams, despite the challenges that women face within the industry, then this episode is for you. All right. Thank you, Factor, for funding part of this initiative. Today's theme is how do you conquer the stresses of career development within the music and event industry as a woman? Our guest today is Miss Savannah Sewell. She has worked on commercial radio and TV. She has sat on the board of Home County, Forest City Gallery, and London Fuse. She has held various roles at the Budweiser Gardens, has founded several festivals, has and does freelance production work for festivals like TIFF, Way Home, Digital Dreams, and more. She also manages Dundas Place in London, Ontario. She loves community building, connecting people, and collaborating. She has a 3-year-old son, and her whole life revolves around music, art, and community. I bring you Savannah Sewell. Yes. Thank you, Savannah, for being here. I want you to know that we very much do appreciate your time, so let's make the most of this and go produce.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Hi. Nice
Hello.
to see you. Nice to be here. Thank you so much.
I really did appreciate your reaction as I was doing the introduction. You were like flabbergasted. It was great. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump right into our first segment of the show. The first segment is called... Oh, I got it right here. The first segment of the show is called... You had to throw me down. I wasn't prepared fully, but the first segment is called The Basics. Alrighty, Savannah. So in The Basics, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be throwing a couple of questions at you so that we can all navigate the rest of this experience together on the same path. Make sense?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Can you please tell me what your first musical memory is?
Oh boy. I don't want to say I'm slightly embarrassed, but okay, wait, hold on. Like first live experience or just first musical experience?
First musical experience, then maybe live experience.
Honestly, I feel like I have a memory of the Judds, oh my gosh, the mother-daughter combo, the Judds.
Yeah.
Can you picture the record? They're two redheads like side by side, like looking so glamorous.
Vaguely.
I have it in my record collection here somewhere. I have a very distinct memory of staring at that album cover in a house that we lived in when I was small. Like I was under 7 years old, and I remember that vinyl. And there's like a song on there called, oh gosh, it's like something about grandpa. Anyways, that is something that stands out to me for sure. So yeah, I guess that vinyl, that record.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Other than today, have you ever thought about why that may have stuck out?
No, not really. Although when like I scour, not so much anymore, but I used to scour the dollar bins at all the record shops. That's a hobby of mine. In my other life, I'll be called, we make jokes that I'd be called DJ Dollar Bin because I'm obsessed with the dollar bin.
You can find some gold in there.
Oh, you don't even want to know how much gold I found in the dollar bin. Anyways, another segment. I remember when I found that record in a dollar bin along my travels over the years, and I felt really connected to it, so I knew I had to have it. And then I put on the record, and I was like, "Oh, I don't even really like this music. I'm not in love with it anymore." But, anyways, yeah, it certainly felt nostalgic when I put it back on. So yeah. I have it. Can I explain why I feel that connection? I guess not. Maybe it was about family. You know, the grandpa song. Something
stuck. Yeah. It's cool how music can do that, though. It can just stick. Now, what was your first live experience?
Okay. This is a very, very specific memory. So my parents got divorced when I was 7. So that's why the 7-year-old, like in the household thing is like connected. And it's all cool. Everyone's chill. My parents are friends. They've been divorced for so long that it's cool. However, you can imagine my dad as like a single parent having to navigate a lot with me as a girl, a young girl, and then my brother who's younger. So I grew up in a small town outside of Kingston, Ontario, and there is a place called the Memorial Center. So my first concert was Tim McGraw, Martina McBride, and Jason McCoy. And I like walking into the show, the energy. I was so excited. Okay. My poor father. So I was so excited that I was ill. Like I was literally vomiting in the bathroom. And my dad, I'm like 7. I'm on that like that edge where I can go to the washroom by myself.
Right, right,
But
right.
there's like I'm like in the washroom vomiting because I'm so excited to be at a show. And there's like women in the washroom helping me. And my dad is like standing outside the washroom with my 5-year-old brother being like, "Are you okay?" And like women being like, "She's okay." It was this whole catastrophe because I was so excited at the Memorial Center, which is like a hole in the wall now. I don't even know. They might have torn it down. Anyways, I was ecstatic. And so that memory is very much in my head. I still have the ticket stub. I can't remember what year it was, but anyways, that was a big one. Like I even remember the smell of the arena. Isn't that weird? Yeah.
It's a very
Anyways,
vivid memory.
yep, that was it. And that's where I fell in love with the live show.
It appears so because the rest of your worlds revolved around that in a way. Yeah, very awesome. And in all of your experience, what was the first industry that the lesson has taught you?
The first lesson that the industry has taught me. Um, well, I had a program director when I worked in Kingston and I worked in radio. And one of the first things he said to me was, never assume anything. It makes an ass out of you and me. And I don't know. It's a stupid one, but it was certainly the first time that I had really kind of learned anything. And that was sort of, like I said, more in the radio, like broadcast world. But
Yeah, I wouldn't say so much as stupid because there's a reason the adage survives for so long, you know?
yep,
Assumptions don't always lead to the best results, and that happens very often.
it's true. The funny thing though about like, so that moment was really important. And I feel, yeah, you shouldn't assume. However, there is this weird thing that happens when you're in live shows and you're in a large scale live event where you do have to make some assumptions and you sort of have to have some mind reading where I have to just say, oh my God, this brand isn't available for this band. They're requesting this specific brand of whatever.
Yeah.
I just have to make this executive decision on behalf of them right now, and hope there's no repercussions. It's weird. So yes, I guess when you're starting off, you shouldn't assume. You should always ask. That was what I learned from that lesson. Don't ever assume, always ask. But then I guess just maybe that comes with more experience. You become a bit more confident in your decision making. But certainly off the hop, yeah, ask as many questions as possible.
Yeah. I think another lesson to add on to that is perhaps decide quick and then make your decision, support your decision slowly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
So instead of wasting a lot of time, instead of like, oh, I don't know what to do, that's actively a decision of not doing anything. Make your decision, adjust to it accordingly afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, when you're again in a fast-paced event environment, I truly think I haven't really stopped to think about it until this moment that it does come with experience of knowing that there is a rhythm to a show. There's a rhythm, there's a heartbeat to it all, and so you have to make these fast decisions. And you're right, you can adjust them, and you could go back and have a tour manager yell at you, and you got to go make an adjustment really quick, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, efficiency is also something that is extraordinarily important in this sector for sure.
Yes, agreed.
So fast.
Are you currently pursuing any new firsts? I know the climate has kind of changed in terms of COVID. We don't want to touch too much light on COVID, but what firsts perhaps excite you that you're working on?
Well, oh, there's lots. It's complicated because as an event organizer, you want to be working ahead and you want to be organized and projecting what's coming. And it's a little bit tricky to do that right now. So I guess, yeah, as far as firsts are concerned, I'm excited. I am excited about all the new technology aspects of everything. And I think that from an accessibility standpoint, some of these best practices should be put into place moving down the road. So when I think about events that maybe I'll do someday, I'm already thinking about how to integrate technology. So it's like, how do we make sure we stream it? How do we make sure that people can get it who aren't physically either wanting to be there or able to be there? So some of those things are kind of in my head. I don't really have anything specific, like a specific task, because it's all still feeling very
Up in the air.
bizarre.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of excited about exploring that a little bit.
It's important that you're excited because you can have the opposite attitude of being upset about it, not eager to want to jump into this whole new world, and that's where people will drown, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's really no option. You just got to evolve. It's an evolution that we didn't necessarily ask for right now, but yeah, I think you do have to kind of jump on it or find your place in it.
Yes, exactly. I do like how you phrase it as an evolution. It's almost accelerated evolution. Like,
Yes.
this is what's happening.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Beautiful. Savannah, we made it through our basics round. We'll be moving swiftly into our next segment. Our next segment is going to be What's Yo Take? All right. So in What's Your Take, we have fun with them. In What's Your Take, we're going to be throwing 3 semi-ridiculous perspectives at you, and essentially, we just want your opinion. Cool.
Okay, sure.
First up is, what's your take on this? Managing a flex street is as simple as producing a single event.
Sorry, do I just give you many thoughts, or am I contained to like 10 words or something?
No, you can now we can speak freely.
We're just talking.
Now we're back to the regular conversation. Yeah.
I'm like, are we?
What's the challenge here?
Doing? Are we going back and forth? Managing a flex street is as easy as pulling off an event. Is that what you said?
Yeah. So managing a flex street is as simple as producing a single event. What is your take on that?
Well, it's very complicated. They're both complicated in their own ways. So the flex street has many capacities and identities, I guess you could say. It's a normal street sometimes. Sometimes it hosts events. So certainly when it's in event mode, I can translate that experience. So, being on a festival site it's not the same as being on a site on the street, but do you know what I mean? Like there's similarities there to pulling off events because we've had some large scale events on the street.
Yeah. For the listeners, just in case they're not super clear on what a flex street is, how do we convert between it being a street and then hosting events? What does that look like?
Sure. So it has the capability to, close down to cars, essentially to vehicular traffic, and turn it into essentially an outdoor venue. So there will be no cars on the road, and then we would stage it in different ways, like depending on the actual event. So we would do that to host whatever the event is. So whether it's a movie, like we have a big movie screen, or put a stage out there, or just like a vendor pop up, whatever the case may be, it's got that capability to essentially remove cars.
Yeah, remove cars and then provide space for creatives, for entrepreneurs to host different kinds of events in collaboration with the facility itself.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Would you say it's more similar to hosting a series of events then, as opposed to a singular, because of its I guess its focus, its purpose?
It's also never ending. Like events have a cycle and events end. So managing a flex street is always, and it's new. And so there's lots of learning that comes along with it. And there's lots of, just tons of learning. Like the learning curves are wild because we've never done this before in this space. And so it's all very new. Whereas with a show, it happens, you pack it up and it drives away.
Yeah.
This is a very consistent sort of show all the time. Because remember, also within the portfolio is maintenance, security, activation. So it's not just events. It's sort of the entire scope of the space.
I know when I don't have the experience that you do, but when working on smaller projects, there's always a bit of light at the end of the tunnel when you're like, okay, finally, this is done. And then you also get that hunger to find out what's next. That's almost entirely removed with you. At the Flex Street, at least, no?
Sort of. I mean, again, this year is a wash, but,
of course,
we had about 25 events on the books. So I was going to be in that mode.
In and out anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair.
So I was sort of prepared for that mode. But yeah, it does. It's been a very wild,
interesting time. Yeah. Moving forward, when we are past COVID, what kinds of projects can people essentially bring to you to then have on the Flex Street at Dundas Place?
I guess we have to put
it's case by case.
I'll answer that question pretending that everybody is safe and healthy and we're allowed to gather, because I think that's going to be the first major setback is what is gathering even going to look like in the future. And I truly don't think that we know the answer. I think obviously, even today a vaccine is en route, but it still feels so far away. I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like it still feels like it's almost, I know it's going to happen, but it maybe feels like it won't.
It's surreal. It's surreal in a sense. Yeah.
Yeah. But we're open, right? It's, I'd like to see it be used as a community space. I'd love to see the hustle and bustle of that urban life kind of come back, because obviously without all the students and the businesses that we normally have, like the major businesses, the big companies that aren't normally in the core right now, I'd love to see that sort of day-to-day activity come back, and then hopefully that spins off into something more. So whether that, like I said, is a more vendor markets or some more capacity for live music, obviously would be great. But yeah, I think it's really going to be case by case.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
When we can get back to that, the goal will be to make this 4-block a focal point for downtown events, essentially. Yes, a place where people can just come and wander.
Yeah, I mean, events,
based off how things develop, of course.
Yeah, and I think that what makes a space exciting is also it's the way that it exists when it's not in event mode. So that's one thing that I've learned a lot through this job, that yes, event mode is important and is one thing, but also what are public spaces for? How do we interact with public space? What is the value of public space? How do people come and go within it? How do the business owners interact with it? How do the business owners use it? I mean, you're talking about a really intense ecosystem of business owners who have been on the street for a long time, who have seen lots of changes, who have, made it through construction and now are navigating COVID. I see it more of as a neighborhood and a community than I do as just a venue, if that makes sense.
It makes sense.
So I look forward to the days when I see lots of families and strollers and people feeling like it's a place that they can meander and go to the library and then have a seat and read their book and grab a coffee and walk into a shop and check out a mural. Like, I want people to be able to have that full wholesome experience because they know it's a community place, not just a place that hosts events. I hope events are obviously still in the purview, but I think that the scope needs to almost be bigger, which is, how do you use this community space for you and your friends and family?
Do you play a role in selecting the different kinds of vendors and store owners that come into that spot?
No, I think anyone can open a business, right? If there's a vacancy and somebody sees a space that they want to open, they are certainly more than welcome to do that. And there's processes
Either or.
in place, that you have to go through the city, and there's different, things you have to do to open a business. But yeah, I don't have any say on any of that.
Yeah, fair. Okay.
Yeah.
Semi recently, 3 years ago, I mentioned earlier you became a mother. And I read in your past research that this allowed you to gain a deeper appreciation for the work that you did, particularly with children's programming. Can you share some light on that?
Sure. Well, I have always cared about kids programming. I ran the family area at home county for a few years, and then also ran Gricklegrass, which was a festival that we did at the Children's Museum here. So we programmed and built programming during the day for kids in that space, and then in the evening turned it into a concert for adults. So I've always had this connection to being a kindred spirit. That's why Gricklegrass was so fun as an adult, because you got to go back to the Children's Museum once a year and be an adult, but also be whimsical and playful and have fun and let loose. So that's always been sort of in my my drive and sort of my focal point of how I like to program. But when it comes to kids stuff, I don't know. I guess I just kind of grew up being like the neighborhood babysitter. I have younger brothers. I was always like taking care of everybody.
The soccer ref.
Yeah. Oh my God. What? I hated that job so much. Okay. That was such a horrible job. How the fuck do you know that? That was such a horrible job. Okay. Those parents were psychos. They yelled at me. I'm like, your kid is 5. And the people that ran the soccer league, sorry, now you've got
Tangent.
me off on it. The family that ran the soccer league lived one street over from my dad's house. And I walked over to get my final paycheck, and they're like, so will you be signing up for the next round of soccer? And I was like, absolutely not. I stood there and cried, and I was like, I'm never doing this again. Like, I'll take my $100 because you paid me 4 cents a game.
And I'm out.
Oh,
ain't nobody got time for that.
Oh my God. What were we even talking about?
We were talking about motherhood and how your experience with children has developed and become deeper.
I guess that taught me how I don't want to be as a parent. I had that experience all those years. Like, why would I ever yell at the teenager running the soccer league?
Yeah,
Never.
That's fair. And I'm curious to know about another experience that you may have experienced when you became a mother. Did people almost take you less seriously because perhaps you were less invested? How did that experience go?
So I powered through my pregnancy and worked and hustled through my pregnancy. I did have some weird comments said to me along the way, like, your career trajectory was headed a certain way, and I hope that having a baby doesn't ruin that for you, which is so insane to even say to somebody in this time.
Men aren't told that.
Yeah, you're right. I mean,
as often, I should say, perhaps.
I sit around a lot of tables with a lot of men, both in the music sector, but also like in a sort of official professional city career, like all of it. It's just usually men. And it was actually funny because during the construction, I was at a construction meeting, and all the engineers and construction worker men were like talking about their kids and stuff, and I was the only woman there, and they were all whatever making general comments. But I remember making a comment, and I don't know, it was just weird. You could tell that doesn't happen a lot in their world. Like, a woman doesn't like pop up and say, well, what about this? Like, your wife can have as many kids as she wants. Like, why is it about you? Anyways, you're right. Men don't hear it. Men don't hear it very often, that's for sure.
But is it because, are there ways to have men hear it more so in terms of speaking about it more to men, or men having the conversation amongst men about women? Is there, what kind of solution do you see?
Well, I think it's all of that. It's all it's everything, right?
Open it up.
It's perception of what parenthood is. It's not, you know, when you are fortunate enough to be in a relationship, and let's be honest, like not all heterosexual relationships have children. There's lots of same-sex couples that have children too and have to navigate, you know, mom versus dad or whatever the case may be. So I think it's just, yeah, the more we just normalize the fact that having children is a thing that all of us can do, and that caregivers come in many shapes and sizes and um, ways. You know, I learned that through rock camp. We don't call them parents, we call them caregivers, because you don't know what people's situations are. Everybody has a different
That's
situation.
interesting. Yeah.
Everyone is raised however they are with whomever they are.
Yeah.
As long as children are surrounded by love, that's obviously what matters. And so yeah, I mean, how do we break through this patriarch? We do it by supporting everybody in that process. But yeah, having more women at the table is important, but also making sure that the women are respected around the table is important. And yeah, we have to just keep talking about it so that it becomes normal. It's just what it is. Life. We're just creating life. And by the way, it takes two. So like,
Yeah.
step it up.
That leads me to the next. What's your take then? It takes two people. But what's your take on this? Men and women share the same struggles.
What?
Within the industry. There are more men more male representatives within the industry. However, they still experience similar struggles. What's your take on that? Not specifically related to motherhood, because we did address that.
No.
Yeah.
You're talking about like the industry, like the music sector? Absolutely not. It's so much easier to be a dude. Look around you, it's all dudes pushing cases. When you see a woman pushing a case, it's like a thing, you know. She has to have a pink hard hat. She doesn't have to, but sometimes they do.
Image, yeah.
Obviously, again, I'm not trying to take away from anyone's experiences, because I know that lots of men struggle too. And again, coming back to identity and the language that we're using, I mean, what about the non-binary folks? What about the trans folks? Like, we have to normalize this and make space for everybody, that yes, this is a male dominated sector. But there are a lot of women. There's less of us, but think about the other marginalized groups. There's even less representation. So, yeah. And so it's just time for us all to just wake the fuck up and just recognize that we have to make space for everyone, no matter the sector. But in this time right now, if we're just talking about music, men can behave differently, mostly because the tour, if I just think about like touring on a large scale, it is very much a boys' club. I've worked hundreds of shows and seen hundreds of tours come through, and it's always amazing when you see women on those teams and on those crews, and those tend to be the best tours and the most organized tours.
Can you perhaps give us an example of a tour that didn't go so well, not necessarily because it was just men, but like an experience that you had to overcome because you were a woman?
An experience that I had to overcome because I was a woman. I mean, just like general catcalls, just like general douchebaggery, like just general.
Yeah.
You're a dude on tour and you haven't seen a woman in a week. I don't know. I don't actually even fully know. I can't justify people's behaviors, but I've been on the receiving end of lots of shows when I've just had to learn how to stand up for myself. I've had to learn how to be polite while doing it, because I'm here to get a job done. I'm not here to be your best friend.
Was that a hard line to define? I'm here to get the job done, not to be your friend.
Yeah.
Did you ever struggle with that, like super early on?
I guess it depends, right? In the early days of working shows, it was so that I could get closer to it, because even if I just use my experience at Bud Gardens, so when I went from bartending the hockey games, which I found out very quickly was not for me. I do not want to deal with hockey fans. That was not my best moment.
Yeah.
I want to work backstage, and I want to learn how to set up dressing rooms, and I want to learn how to do all that. So when I I started doing that, it was so that I could get closer to that energy, back to the Tim McGraw energy. I was trying to get back to that, not vomit all over everybody.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
But what am I trying to say? That perhaps there was some like fan or I don't want to say I was ever a super fan because I was always I'm always very like polite to people. I don't know. It's a weird line, right? Why am I here? That's the question. I'm here because I'm obsessed with learning how a show works and the heartbeat. Um, but I also am intrigued by musicians and artists and how they are existing in this. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like answering your question about being a friend versus getting the job done. I think there's a way to be professional and still be nice.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's a learning
yeah,
that's a learning curve. What
yeah.
was there any specific strategies or lessons that you had to apply when you were a younger woman climbing the ladder in a male dominated industry? Perhaps that could better center the focus.
Sorry, say that again.
Did you have any specific strategies or lessons that you applied to yourself when you were younger to make adjusting easier?
I wouldn't say any of it was strategy looking back on it. I think now in my life, I love to talk about strategy because I understand what that even means. Um, but at the time, it was survival and excitement and adrenaline mostly. I mean, that's what shows are. They're full of adrenaline. Um, and so I thrive really well in the shitstorm because I like to make fast decisions and find solutions and zip around and run, basically. But there's no, well, I shouldn't say there's no union because there are some unions. However, I've never been represented by a union. So I just learned very on, like, I don't have an HR department. So I have to stand up for myself. And when I meet other women who are either in the production side or whatever the case may be, to that's where I would build my connections and that's where I would look to build relationships with and say, can I email you down the road or next time you're in town, can we catch up? Or, how, and I started asking women in the industry questions that way and sort of just like really building relationships. My entire career has been about relationships.
Yeah.
And so that's where it started was just identifying, oh, there's lots missing here. I want to stand up for myself, but I also don't want to be put into the category of being a bitch
Of
because that
course.
also comes with it, which
Yeah.
is also ridiculous. We
It
have
is.
to.
It is.
There's
It is.
way more of you in this show. There's 100 crew, and there's probably 5 women. So I'm gonna just have to navigate this on my own. But again, I guess it just comes with time and just doing it a bunch.
Yep. And I do also want to say that as a woman or as a man or any kind of human, people will treat you the way you let them treat you. You have to set that standard ahead of time, and perhaps it won't happen day one, but it's a consistency thing too.
Yeah, and I think also you will recognize if this is the path you want to be on because if you have these bad experiences but it becomes not worth it for you then you shouldn't, right? I have a few friends that are like, oh, I want to work in costume, and then they've had like some weird experiences with tour managers or somebody says something inappropriate, and if you can't, you don't have to deal with that for starters, but if you can't navigate it, you don't have to. So you can pivot and go do something else perhaps, or just realize like I have to put boundaries up, um, and I don't want to put myself in that situation. That is totally okay and acceptable as well.
Yeah, your
It's
happiness is important.
it's just really complicated because there's what we're talking about is existing in a kind of a gray area where there isn't, like I said, there isn't an HR department. Nobody really fully gives a shit, which is unfortunate. But I mean, I've been on festival sites where I've had a male on the crew, like literally on the same team as me, harassing me to the point where I totally had to, thank God the production manager was a woman, but I had to go over there in the middle of a show where it is so busy, it's so crazy, there's a lot happening. Her walkie-talkie and phone is ringing nonstop, and I'm like, I need to talk. I'm having an issue with somebody. Like, it's a really complicated thing. Because again, shows have a life cycle. So when the show goes away, that person goes away.
Yeah.
But it's still in the moment, and I'm still trying to do my job, and I'm having a complicated time getting my job done because this person is being an asshole or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Whatever
it's really bizarre. So standing up for yourself is important, but doing it in a professional way is important. Knowing who your allies are on a festival or an event site is really important. And asking questions before the show starts, like, what are the protocols for harassment? What are the protocols for health and safety? What are the protocols for mental health? Putting that at the front of your own freelance work, because I guess that's what we're talking about here is my freelance time. Putting that up front is important, and I would suggest that to anybody who identifies as a minority on a festival site.
Yeah. I suppose that's a better way to label it, as a minority just across the board, because we'll all see similar problems within each of the different minority groups. Cool.
Yeah.
Beautiful. We've got our next segment. This segment is called Clear the Air. We are making our way. Alrighty, Savannah, our Clear the Air segment is our last segment of the show. We do like to start this segment off with a fan question.
Hey Louie, how's it going? I noticed you maintain a blog on Done This Place website. You blogged for once a week from March 2018 to December 2019, and then you had one entry for July, August, and October 2020. My question is, did you find more success in maintaining your blog when it's more active?
I guess what is success of a blog, right? What is considered success? What I will also tell you is that having support. So I'm a one-person show. I don't have any staff, and so managing communications has been really heavy on top of all the other things. So when I had support, that's when the blog happened. But yeah, I mean, I guess also just figuring out, because all of it is so new, figuring out what channels work for us and what don't, what works and what doesn't. Oof. What works and
English.
what doesn't. Thank you. Has been a part of the challenge and the ongoing learning curve. So yeah, and COVID like really screwed up all of it too.
Yeah.
Because we were headed on a different trajectory, and I lost my interns. Their internship was like abruptly taken and ended through Fanshawe. So I was back to square one. So yeah, I would say that things are successful when there's support for this specific role. But I do know lots of people who do find success with a blog and find that to be a good medium for them. Yeah, and I think you just have to test out to see what works best for you, whatever it is that you're trying to get done or whatever your project is.
Do the project, reevaluate it, see if it's yielding results, and then cut back, especially if you're tight on resources.
Exactly.
COVID has been a time to make everyone tight on resources. Well, for the most part, everyone. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you for answering our fan question. We did mention a little bit about Grickle Grass. Can you tell us about your experience there, perhaps starting with one of your favorable memories? I've got a couple here that I want to talk about, but I'm curious to see what stands out for you with Grickle Grass. Also, tell us what it is so that everyone knows what it is.
Sure, yeah. So it is the festival that we ran for 10 years at the Children's Museum, like I was saying earlier. So kids programming during the day, excuse me, kids programming during the day, a one-day festival, and then at night we would turn the Children's Museum into a concert venue. So in all the nooks and crannies, we would put musicians and artists and art installations. It was a lot of fun. A highlight for me is, I think it was 2017. No, must have been earlier, 2016. And Zaki Ibrahim played. I'm a big fan of her.
Yeah.
She showed up though, and she was pregnant, like 8 months pregnant. Like she was so pregnant. And Zaki Ibrahim is like an amazing artist. If you don't know her, she's from South Africa, but based in Toronto. She's like the most beautiful R&B. I just am obsessed with her. Um, and she had a really tough year that year. Her father passed away. So we weren't even sure if the booking was going to happen because her life flipped upside down, obviously. And so last minute, she was able to make it work. She showed up super pregnant. And I was like, oh my God, this is wild. Obviously, this was before I was pregnant. So I was just kind of like so blown away. And then she danced like you have never seen anybody dance before. Like she put on a show. She had her dancers, her backup singers. It was like the most remarkable thing. And she was just like giving it like, what baby? Or like, my baby is a part of this.
Yeah.
And to me, that was a really inspiring moment.
Wow.
And, you know, my son was on my back at a lot of events after I had him. Like I worked on my mat leave. I did some events and he was strapped to me. And yeah, that was definitely an important moment for me. Yeah.
So it appears there's a lot of baby stories with Grickle Grass. There's this one with Zaki, and then there's also an actual baby, the Grickle baby. What's that story?
There was a Grickle baby, which is deep too. You did the deep dive. One of the days, one of the festival during the day, I was working in someone else's office at the Children's Museum, and this woman walked in and she was like, I'm looking for like a feminine product. And I was like, oh, this isn't my desk. I was like, oh, I'm like looking through the drawer. I was like, I'm sorry, I don't have anything. She's like, oh, my water just broke. And she was so calm. And I was like, what? Obviously, it was not her first baby. He had been down that road before. And then it turns out she was friends of somebody. So then later that night, someone's like, there's the baby. And then there was a photo and there was a Grickle baby. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's a wild experience.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
We spoke of the Grickle experience.
Mm-hmm.
You're also the co-founder of the London Girls Rock Camp. Can you clear the air on that? What is going on there?
What's going on there?
Like, how was the idea born, for example? We'll start off with there.
Oh, sure. Well, rock camps are everywhere. The beautiful thing about the rock camp thing is that anyone can do it. And that's kind of encouraged. It's a very punk rock thing to do. So let's see, I guess it was 2015. I had been chatting with some folks who were a part of the rock camp in Sackville, New Brunswick. I'm like, Sackville, New Brunswick has a rock camp. Let's start one here. So I rallied some folks from the music and arts community, and it was like, this is what I'm thinking. Do you guys want to help? And here we are. So we've had a crazy run as well. Obviously paused this year, but when the Junos were in town, we had a really wild Juno week. We received $25,000 from Music Counts to buy instruments, which was an absolute game changer. And then actually one of our campers was selected to be on stage with Sarah McLachlan and introduce an award, which was proud mom moment for me too. Anyways, and then when Sarah McLachlan performed at the Junos in London, so Muriel was our camper, so she did the intro, and then Sarah went on to perform. And then on the huge screens, every single one of our campers that week were on the
highlighted
video. Yeah, they were highlighted. So the Juno folks came and did some filming with us during the week, and then on the Sunday produced it for the show. So yeah, we had a really beautiful Juno week as a crew. So anyways, anyone can come to rock camp. You don't have to have any experience. We are
as long as you're a girl, correct?
Well, it doesn't matter. You identify as
fair,
female, non-binary, trans, whatever. You're welcome with us. You don't have to have any musical experience, and we'll hang out for a week.
And what do you think is most critical for an experience like this for these young people?
Safety is a big one. We find that making sure that kids can just be themselves. We don't often, I think, give our kids enough space to be themselves. So there's this part of safety, but there's also this part of confidence that comes along with it. So you would be so amazed with what happens in a week, right? So a kid can show up on Monday with no experience, and by Friday they're performing in front of 200 people a song that they wrote with a band. Like, it's real. It happens. When you give them safety and creativity and support, magic happens. And so that's the best part of Rock Camp, is that you can do it. And
a place where someone
yeah.
can experience magic without previous experience. That really changes people's lives.
It's interesting. Pardon me?
I said it really does have great effects on people's lives, because that confidence doesn't just disappear after, it carries forward.
That's the hope. And there's lots of amazing kids that have come through who have started bands and navigated tough life lessons and experiences and come back to tell us about it. But yeah, I would say Rock Camp is some of the most important work that I've ever been involved with, for sure, hands down.
That's awesome. And once COVID is passed, we can look forward to it returning?
Yes. Oh my God, we're dying. We're all of our staff, we're so sad. We love our campers and we love camp, and we run it at the Fanshawe campus downtown, which is also an amazing space for us. So yeah, we can't wait to all be back together.
Soon times. We're hoping for it.
Soon.
Can you tell us a little bit about your experience beginning at Budweiser? You said that you did some bartending work, and then you were kind of more interested in the back of house productions, but you also did marketing, you also did production, you did 75 shows in that building. How did that experience lead specifically to freelance production work for big events such as TIFF, Way Home, Digital Dreams?
Yeah, so I got a job at Bud Gardens while I was still in school, bartending, and actually, I'm trying to think about how I got that job at Bud. I met somebody through radio. Yeah. So, anyways, that was my first taste of like arena life. Was bartending, and then switched over into the backstage stuff and learned about the catering side of things. And that's when I started to meet. The production managers. So I would always deal with whoever was there. It was Live Nation, AEG, Collective, whoever the concert promoter was. They always sent a rep to the venue, so I got to meet people there. There is an amazing production manager in this country, and her name is Vanessa Arscott, and she's like, I love her. She is kind and gracious, but also a total badass, and everyone in the industry knows Vanessa. She actually works on the Junos, but she does everything. And so I met Vanessa through that. So she used to work for Live Nation, and when I started to get the itch to want to work more shows outside of London and bigger stuff, I reached out to some of the production managers that I had met along the way. And so I ended up at Gentlemen of the Road, which was kind of my first show outside of the arena in Simcoe. I don't know if you guys remember that, but I don't. Mumford and Sons was doing that tour where they would go to all these small communities. And so they went to Simcoe, Ontario, and Vanessa was the production manager on that show. So that was just the beginning of it. So again, it comes back to relationships. All of these gigs are not about submitting a resume. By the time you get into the wheel, you just get the call. Mm-hmm. And so Vanessa also built Way Home. So when she was building the Way Home team, she just made the calls and said, hey, do you want to come be a part of it? So that was all relationships. And then TIFF was another friend got a gig. TIFF was crazy. My friend got a gig. She called me one day. I was actually standing, this was obviously many years ago, I was standing on Dundas Street, and she called me, and she's like, they're looking for an extra production manager. I gave them your name. Will you come and do this gig with me? And I was like, okay. My phone rings, and TIFF's like, this was a whatever Thursday. They're like, can you be on site on Monday with steel toe boots and a hard hat? And I was like, yep, no problem. I'll be there. And then that was the most insane month of my life. But yeah, so anyways, my point is that it all just happens this way. and I have a ton of friends now that work in the industry in Toronto, and I feel like it's a second family. All these great people that live there and work there, and they're in it. They're like in it all the time. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how it unfolded.
It's very cool to see that the bigger picture there. And as we wrap up, I want to know, did your experience with sexism change from the beginning until now, or are you still experiencing it full force? You just know how to maneuver it better?
Yeah, you just learn how to maneuver it, which is such an unfortunate thing to say.
It really is.
I obviously wish we weren't saying it this way. And I wish I wasn't considered, passionate or emotional, because that I feel like still happens.
I actually think men should be more passionate and emotional. It would help. I think it would help.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, it is all just about these very bizarre patriotic norms that we've just grown up to know, and our parents are a part of the problem, and our, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's
generational.
So systematic. It's so deep. It's so, and that's why as a parent, you try so hard to be as open and supportive as possible, and not too conforming, because it's just like, whatever you got to do to be your best self. This generation that's coming up behind us, they're so woke, man. The rock camp kids, they're like, what is gender? They're like, no, we're not here to talk about that. Don't put us in your box. Like, we're so cool. We're like on it.
But also with this culture, they're very open like that, but they're very quick to cancel. Cancel culture, that's very real as well.
Man, I don't even want to talk about cancel. I have so many opinions and feelings, and we've been on this great trajectory for the last hour. We'll just
yeah, we'll end it there.
We'll keep it good. But I was on a tangent, but what were we talking about before we got to the kids?
The transition from your experience at Bud to TIFF, Way Home, Digital Dreams, and if sexism became easier to handle throughout that career.
Sexism has become different, right? So as you move through your career, so when I'm like slogging it behind stage and someone like makes a comment to you or like whistles at you, that doesn't happen to me. But at a boardroom table where, now people perhaps don't take you seriously or tell you you're emotional or you can't cry at work, or, you know what I mean? Like, your experience isn't valid. It comes in a different package now,
right?
As your career proceeds. So, it's just about navigating it in a different way, which again is so crappy. But it's the name of the game. But it is about what it is still about is connecting with people that have your back and people that you trust, and people, men and women, like whoever. It's not just about
of course
one gender, but who's got your back and who's going to help you get to where you need to be.
There are good people there.
There are
other Vanessas. There are other Vanessas. You can be someone's Vanessa very soon. You probably are already.
No way. No way.
I think so. I wouldn't count you out. Savannah, that's everything for today. Before we do wrap up, I want to ask if you have any final words.
No, well, that's not true. I always have things to say. I always have opinions, as I'm sure you've picked up on. But just, it sounds so cliche, but just try to be yourself. And even though it's all so bizarre and gray when you're entering the music sector, don't be afraid to be yourself and stand up for yourself, and know that there is always somebody who's been there before, and don't be afraid to reach out. Even though I'm not on a festival site with you, but you can find me somewhere in the abyss, like, reach out. I'd love to talk. I'm not an expert, but I'm here, and I think it's just important to know that you're not by yourself, especially in these very isolating times. You are not alone.
I like the support in the background.
I was like, who said that? Is there somebody else here?
That's awesome. Beautiful. And can our listeners find you anywhere?
You can just find me on the Instagram. That's where I spend my time.
Yeah. What's your handle?
I think I'm at Van Ray.
Van Ray?
VANRAE.
Okay. I will make sure to check that, and I'll update that in our show notes as well, so our listeners can find you there.
Sure.
Beautiful, beautiful. I want to say thank you to our listeners now. Thank you for participating and learning and engaging with us. Shout out to our very own grumpy sound guy. Shout out to Prevail Media Group for the facility, the time, the energy that you all put into this. And lastly, a great big thank you to you, Miss Savannah Sewell. We out.
Thank you for listening. If you found any value in this episode and you want to learn more from our content, check out our website at goproduce.ca. If you're on Instagram, check out our handle at go.produce. If you're on YouTube, subscribe. If you're on Spotify, hit download. If you're on Apple Music, leave a review. This will all help us grow our community. I'm Big Lou, and this is Go Produce.